Chapter 5, Getting Started with Python, Part 5. Input and output. We will look at two functions, input and print. Input function collects all the characters the user has typed on the keyboard and returns it when the user presses on the enter key. Print function takes in a string from the programmer and displays it on the output. Now let's take a look at some example Python code. As you can see, I have a variable name which receives the string returned by the input function, and to the input function we are passing a string, what is your name, colon. So when we run this line, the interpreter prints what is your name as a prompt and waits for the user to type in a set of characters and presses enter. So the user has typed in Dinesh and then presses enter. In the next line, you can see how we can use the value stored in the name to print it on the screen. So we have a print statement, then we have a hello space, and then we have a operator here, plus operator here, and then we add, when we call the variable name, and then we again have a plus operator, and then we have a dot. So the output of this function is as shown here. Now let's take a look at a small variation. The same print method. Here we have hello without a space, then we have a comma, name, comma, end is equal to dot. So what this means is we are asking the Python interpreter to print hello, give a space, and then print the value in the name variable and end with a full stop. So this is the output. So this output and this output is very similar. So it's two ways of doing the same thing. Now we have another variation where we print hello without any space, but we use comma, we provide name, and then we explicitly say separator is equal to space. So what it means is when it concatenates the inputs, it has to separate by a space. And then finally, we are saying it has to end with a full stop. So the output is again very similar to the previous two function outputs. Now let's take a look at one more variation where we have something called formatted string. It's the latest feature in the latest Python version. So if you use the F, it indicates that we are trying to format the string, and this is much simpler. So here we have hello space, and then we have the curly brackets, and then we provide the name of the variable name. So here the variable name is name, and then we have a full stop. So this produces the same output. So we have seen how we can use the print function and how we can do the concatenation. Then we'll look at one more interesting aspect where we use the star operator to print the name twice. So if you say print name *2, the interpreter will print the value of the variable twice on the output. Now let's take a look at how we can use input, and we'll also take a look at how to do typecasting. So we have a line written here which says age underscore input is equal to input, what is your age. So it prints on the screen what is your age and waits for the user to type in. The user types in 10 and presses enter key. Now the age input has the value 10, but when you look at the type, it's a string. Now how do we change it to an integer? So we can have another variable to store the integer, and we can call age is equal to int of age underscore input. So here we are passing the string value and converting it into an integer, as you can see in the next line. Now how do we print it back on the screen? So we can use the print function, and then we can use the formatted string feature where we can say you are space curly brackets age space years old, and it will print you are 10 years old. And the same thing can be achieved without using the formatted string by using the default concatenation feature of print, where it adds more than one string into one string. So here you are without any space, we have comma, age, comma, without any space, you have years old. So it tries to combine all these different parts of string into one string called you are 10 years old. Now we can also reduce the number of lines in the input and typecasting by writing it in single line. So age is equal to integer of, which is a method, and then we are calling another function input, and within that function we are providing what is your age. So now the effect is same. Only thing is we are reducing the number of lines. Type conversion. We can convert values from one data type to another data type. It can be done explicitly when the programmer codes the Python program, or it can be implicitly by the Python interpreter. Now let's take a look at how explicit conversion works. We have a sample here where we have a string being passed into the integer function, and it converts it into the integer file. And then when we try to pass an integer itself, it again tries to convert into file. Then when we pass a decimal 5.8, it tries to convert it into an integer, but this time it does not include the decimal part. It just takes the digits before the decimal. And then now we have an error here, as you can see. So we are trying to convert integer 5.8 as a string. When we don't have a decimal part, it's able to convert, but when we have a decimal part, then pass it as a string, it gives you an error saying that it's an invalid literal. And similarly, when we try to convert the string high into an integer, we again get a value error. As you've seen, Python interpreter tries to convert sometimes implicitly. So if we have an expression where we have a combination of integer and float, integers are converted into float and then the expression is evaluated. So in this case, integer is converted to float, and then float plus float will result in float data type. Similarly, when there is a bool, the bool is converted into an integer, and then we have a integer plus integer, so the result will be integer. And whenever we use a division of two integers, the integers are converted into float, because not every time the division will result in integer. So for safety, it will always convert it into float. And then when we have a expression where we are trying to add an integer with a complex data type, the integer portion is converted into complex, and then both the complex numbers are added together to result in a complex result. Let's take a look at few sample code and the output. So we have one integer and one float here. So when we try to add them, the result is 10.5, which is a float. Then when we look at the second one, x is having a boolean value which is true, and internally true means 1. Then we have y is equal to 4. So when we do result is equal to x plus y, we get 1 plus 4, which is 5, and it's an integer data type. Then when we try to divide two integers, result is equal to a divided by b, we get the result 5.0, which is a float type. And then when we have a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 5 plus 5j, now 5 plus 5j is a complex number. It has got a real and imaginary parts. So when we try to do result is equal to a plus b, what happens is the real parts are getting added and then the imaginary part remains the same. So we get a result 10 plus 5j, which is of the type complex. Debugging. So what is debugging? So when we write program in Python or in any language, there is a possibilities of facing errors during the execution or during the interpretation. So the process of identifying and fixing the errors from your code is called debugging. Also, it is known as bugs or bug fixing. Now, what are the types of errors? Errors can occur in syntax or in the logic of the program, or can occur during the runtime or running time of your program. Syntax errors. Whenever Python interpreter encounters an error in the syntax, it stops execution abruptly at that point, and then the program does not proceed. So let's take a look at an example. So we have age is equal to 10, and then we are trying to print, and then we have the strings UR space, and then plus age plus, and then we have a string where we have a space and years old. So when we try to execute this line, the interpreter complains saying that you can only concatenate string to string, not integer. So in this line, the way to fix this problem is to use a conversion method, string conversion method called str, where we call the str function and then we are passing the variable age. And now the error is fixed and we get the expected output. Logical errors. In this type of errors, there are no syntax issues and the interpreter does not stop abruptly and the program continues execution. But the problem is the output is not as expected. So we need to do the testing of the outputs and also test how the program is executing logically. So let's take an example. So we have max score is equal to 95 and science score is equal to 90. Our objective is to find the average score. So we try to do average score by writing average score is equal to max score plus science score divided by 2. And then when we try to see what is the value of average score, it is 140, which is not expected. So when we look at why we got 140, it's because there is a operator precedence and division operator takes a higher precedence, right? So then this is not suitable for us. So we fix the problem by changing the operator precedence by introducing a parenthesis. So now average score is equal to parenthesis max score plus science score divided by 2, and then now average score becomes 92.5. Now let's take a look at runtime errors. So these are errors caused by the values in the input or due to the environment factors, the environment in which your Python code is running. Now let's take a look at a program where we are trying to divide two numbers. So we are trying to get number one by getting the input from the user and typecasting it. And similarly, we're getting number two by getting the input from the user and typecasting it. User has provided 5 and 0. So when we try to divide these two numbers, we are getting a 0 division error because we cannot divide a number by 0. So in this cases, we have to do some defensive checks to make sure that we are not receiving a 0. Now, sometimes the user can also provide unknowingly a string value. For example, when we try to get the number one, the user has provided a string value, a text value. So in this case also we get an error. So these are errors that we get only during the runtime due to the nature of inputs or due to the environmental factors.